Allow me to extend a warm welcome to all the viewers on the internet and around the world. It is sunrise on YouTube, morning on Facebook, noon on Twitter, midday on Threads, afternoon on Twitch, sunset on Instagram, and evening on Rumble. I am your host, the Ancient One, the Bachelor Supreme, the Phantom Menace, he who remains, and the master of the deceptive arts. We are broadcasting live directly from the sanctum of solitude and the citadel at the end of time. Good evening, everyone. I am the Ancient One, the Bachelor Supreme, the Phantom Menace, he who remains, and I am the master of the deceptive arts. And today I wanted us to continue our discussion of the deceptive arts with the intention of advancing and improving our skills and our understanding of the deceptive arts in our attempts to disguise and hide our dispositions, our plans, our intentions, our intended outcomes, perhaps even our proclivities and our own misgivings. We can be tempted to want to learn about the misgivings of others. And in truth, this isn't a very exciting endeavor. Because as tempting as that might be, I can assure you that most people's lies and deceptions are, quite frankly, very short-sighted. Usually they fall into 3 or 4 categories. On the one, it's they probably drank alcohol or too much alcohol. The other is they consumed illicit substances, or they bought, sold, and consumed illicit substances. And then there is the usual one where they had intimacy with somebody that they shouldn't have. Generally, it was unprotected intimacy. So these would be intimacy-related issues like a pregnancy or a DNA, paternity, and those types of things. Now, this is not to imply that these are not devastating. It just means that if someone is going out of their way to hide something from you or to deceive you, and they are putting evidence in front of you that is contrary to the truth, it may be quite difficult for you to uncover that deception. In fact, it could take years for some men to discover that the child they've been raising isn't their own, right? But usually what we're talking about are 3, maybe even 4 very small categories. So you don't really need to ask yourself, what are people lying about? The other one that people generally lie about is their financial situation, right? So either they're hiding how much money they have and they have a lot of it, or they're pretending to have a lot of money and quite frankly, they just don't have enough of it, at least not as much as they're pretending to have, right? Most people's deceptions are not going to extend beyond these categories, right? What you should be interested in is if their illegal activities, or rather if their activities are illegal and have legal ramifications, right? Because legal ramifications are the same as financial ramifications, right? So to hit someone legally is quite frankly to also affect their finances, right? So, from a strategic point of view, right, particularly in a social setting, you want maybe even also to a commercial rival, right? If you have a rival of any kind, and you are looking to strike a definitive blow or to create a series of problems for which they must try and resolve, having a legal strategy is really possibly the best way that you're going to do that, especially in a social setting, right? So this the law is going to decide what your interaction is and if that interaction was okay or not. So strategically, you want to have a legally sound strategy, right? So in that social setting, you want to quite frankly find out what illegally unsound activities these counterparts and these knee benders are up to. You want to get evidence of this illegality, so you want some type of video, a photo, a recording, a message, and then you want to get this evidence and store that evidence as ammunition, right? However, what you don't want is you don't want them to get that type of ammunition on you. So if you're involved in something that you want to keep hidden away, you need to keep that thing hidden away. And then you want to find out what people are up to, right? You don't want to waste your time finding out scandals. That's just a waste of your time. What you want to do is you want to find out what are the things that should I expose these to the right people, there will be ramifications, right? Try never to break the law yourself, right? Especially the predictable laws, which is drinking or taking illicit substances in a provable way. So, if you're drinking and then you go and you drive, or you drink and you become violent, or you drink and you get yourself into trouble, right? That's public intoxication. You're going to jail for that. You're absolutely going to jail for that, right? So drinking, especially drinking in public, is going to be a problem. Most of your troubles are actually going to come because you are under the influence of alcohol and have no self-control, right? Self-control is your only power. And if you lose self-control, you don't know what you're going to do and where you're going to end up. And quite frankly, people can make you do whatever they want you to do, right? And also, they can control you simply not by giving you the substance that makes you lose control, but they can control you by withholding the substance that makes you lose control. So you might want this thing and then they just keep it away from you. The second thing you need to concern yourself about is violence, right? Violence is completely out of the question, right? Violence is completely forbidden in the bachelor life. Responsibilities, and then now it's violence. This is a recent addition, I might add. It came to me because of the recent video that we did asking, are you breaking the law? And it became very clear that the law has various different, descriptions and expressions for violence and threatening behavior. So violence is completely out of the question. This is simply because it's not just a question of self-defense, but because any amount in any type of violence is the fastest and most guaranteed way for you to go to jail. And this is against the bachelor life, right? We don't want anything that's going to restrict your freedom of movement, your autonomy, your freedom to choose. In fact, anything that will prevent you from having full self determination, right? And prison, no self determination in jail. And violence is really the thing that's going to put you in there. It's not going to be loud music. It's not going to be video games or any of the things that people criticize, right? It's going to be responding to that criticism with violence. While you don't want to be drinking and being violent yourself, um, you want to ensure that those of your enemies who drink, they continue to drink. Those who indulge in illicit substances, they continue to indulge in illicit substances, right? Um, those that want to have intimacy with the wrong people, they need to have the opportunity to indulge in that preference as well, right? And those that do have intimacy with the wrong people, you can just hope that they get pregnant, right? This is the consequence of intimacy, pregnancy. So we know what the outcomes are. You drink alcohol, you get belligerent, you get violent, you drink and you drive, you go to jail. You get violent, you go to jail. Illicit substances is the same, but intimacy, unprotected intimacy, pregnancy. These are the consequences that you can induce in people legally. Now, I would have said you want to get them to do this, so you want people to be, you want the person that you're cheating or that you're with to cheat because you have a vasectomy. So you've put yourself beyond the possibility of defeat and cheating on you. Therefore, the consequence for them will be pregnancy, 20 years of child raising, and 18 years of child support. This is what you want, right? And you want to keep that vasectomy a secret, absolutely, right? But you want it to use it in such a way that people who try to deceive you, they face consequences for that deception. So it's like you're laying traps all around you, right? But you want to make sure, you want to be paranoid and cautious that people don't lay traps for you, right? So you want to stay on the right side of the law, on the right side of things, or if you cannot remain entirely on the right side of things, of all of us make mistakes, you want to make sure those mistakes are covered by a bodyguard of lies, right? Or that you've wiped that slate clean and there's no evidence against you, right? This is how the law works, right? This is really how the law works, and you want to prevent other people from using the law against you, while you can use the law against them, right? So you don't want to make them break the law, right? Because that's risky in its own way, and that intention can lead you to legal ramifications yourself. So you don't want to induce someone to break the law, but if they are intent on doing so, do not prevent them. Do not, right? You can encourage them, right? You can encourage their visions of success, right? And then collect that delusion, those delusions of grandeur, collect those delusions as ammunition, right? Because whatever scam they're up to, they're not gonna get rich off those scams, right? That's really what you want to do, right? So if it's as the Grand Master says, the ability to protect ourselves lies in our own hands, but the opportunity of defeating the enemy will be provided by the enemy themselves. So what you want to do is to know what their plans are and use those plans to defeat them, right? You don't want to come up with some grand scheme that's going to induce them to taking some kind of unbelievable, unplanned action that might or might not be against, their intention. You're never going to get that. You need to use their intentions, and flip it on them. So if they want to go having affairs and they risk pregnancy, you prevent that. You prevent those consequences falling on you by getting a vasectomy, right? So if they want to go drinking and partying, you can go with them and celebrate, right? But what you want to do is be drinking 0% beer, right? So especially if you know you're going to be driving, and you also want to maintain a deceptive appeal, right? There's nothing wrong with drinking 0% alcohol. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I drink it myself. It's actually a fairly healthy drink. But I use it in my deceptive arts. So I know that everybody else is drinking alcohol, right? 5%, 6%, 10%, 15%, 46%. Sometimes it can go up to 70%, which is insane, right? That's disinfectant. That's a sanitizer. 70% alcohol, that's sanitizer. But I've seen people do it. It's insane, but I've seen people do it, right? Let them. Let them. You just drink water and yeast and 0% beer, right? That way your outcomes will never be in doubt, you know? And instead of a participant, you are now a witness, right? And you can use whatever ammunition you see them do. Whatever people do under the influence of illicit substances and alcohol, it's still them. The law is not going to hold the substance to account. They're going to hold the person, regardless of, what it is that they've taken and how it makes them feel. So what you want again is you want to develop a spirit of paranoia where you let them do it but you don't let them catch you doing it. You want to have the belief that you're being competitive, and quite frankly they may be out to get you and you wouldn't know it, right? Because if you did know that they were out to get you, you wouldn't be paranoid, right? It's the things that you don't know that you're worried about, right? And this is what we're talking about today. We're talking about how to use that paranoia for your own benefit, right? So let them get inebriated, right? And some of these people, they would even get so inebriated, right, that they would record themselves breaking the law, and then they would send that evidence straight to you. Now, isn't that nice? How considerate is that they would send that evidence straight to you? But you don't want to be this person. You don't want to be the guy recording yourselves in a room full of narcotics doing ridiculous things, and then you record yourself and post it on the internet, right? Because that footage is always going to come back to you. I guarantee you that much. But you want your friends to do it. You want your colleagues to do it. You want your enemies to do it, but not you, right? So keep yourself thinking and acting in the right way, right? To keep yourself like this, you're going to need a healthy level of skepticism and mistrust. And above all, you're going to have to be paranoid, right? Paranoia is defined as the unjustified and unprovable suspicion and mistrust of other people and their actions. And that's really what you need to have. You need to have mistrust for people, even the people that you have no reason to mistrust, right? Even though you have no evidence and no proof that you need to be suspicious of somebody, you need to be suspicious of them, especially these counterparts, right? You need to be suspicious of them all the way through. What you don't want to do is you don't want to be not skeptical and not suspicious of someone just to find out that you were right anyway, just to find out that they were trying to get in on your secrets to use against you. They were trying to find out what your past is so they can have, some legal precedents to say, oh, go back to 2004, he did this and that and that. Go back to 1986, he did this and that and that. Go back to 1975, and you'll see this and this and this. Because they'll go back there. And when they find what they find, they'll prosecute, right? So you need to have just an unjustified and unprovable suspicion of the highest level, right? So unjustified means you are, it's just so high that you are so suspicious of this person, but for absolutely no reason, right? For absolutely no reason. And that reason we actually have a reason for this, right? We actually have a reason because this is going to strengthen you. Paranoia is going to strengthen your resolve in the deceptive arts. It is absolutely what you need to improve your deceptive skills and to keep you motivated in the deceptive arts, right? But for some people, they might think that this paranoia refers only to the spirit with which the actions are taken, or even the philosophy out of which an action is performed. While that might be of concern for some people, for me, my concern is the results of those actions or the consequences of those outcomes is what should make you paranoid too, right? So, whatever action, if it is taken in an illegal and provable way, right, or has financial losses, right? Or even worse, the discovery or a deception, right? Of a secret, right? So whatever those those consequences are, right? You need to be paranoid, right? That they would be that you would be that they would befall you, right? So even if somebody takes an action, right, that is done in a seemingly good way, that action can have illegal consequences for you. It can have provable legal ramifications. It can result in financial losses, which is unacceptable in the bachelor life, right? It can mean that whatever deceptions you are currently being involved in, whatever project that involves deception that you're currently involved in, that gets exposed, right? Now, this should bring pause to you and instantly heighten your paranoia, right? So if you are with a counterpart, this happens very often, and it's almost bedtime, maybe an hour to bedtime, and the counterpart says, "Hey, can I come over? I can be there in about 30 minutes." Right? You think, well, I still have an hour, right? What the counterpart means is that they intend to leave in about 30 minutes and they'll be there an hour after bedtime. They're always going to be late. So if that type of thing happens and you know that the counterpart coming over spending time with you is going to cost you sleep and it's going to cost you productivity in the morning, you need to be paranoid about that. You need to be skeptical and suspicious about that, right? You need to be serious about preserving yourself in every possible way, right? Because the results of that are going to fall on you, and the counterpart is going to delight in your failure, right? They think that things like that are fun, right? That, oh, you're in trouble, haha, we're children, but we're not children, right? And as soon as you're like over 21 years old, you're not a child anymore. So you cannot be staying up all night, trying to be trying to prove that you're something that you're not, trying to prove that you have a level of coolness that, quite frankly, is just going to result in consequences later. It's difficult to think like this as a young man, right? It can be difficult to think like this as a young man, which is why you need to build a healthy level of skepticism and paranoia from the beginning, right? But you should already be paranoid, right? You should already be, as a practitioner of the deceptive arts, you should already be paranoid to begin with, right? But illegal consequences, financial loss, or the discovery of a deception of a secret, those must amplify your mistrust. They must double and heighten your paranoia. As soon as you hear financial loss, as soon as you hear legal consequences, as soon as you suspect that somebody is going to discover one of your secrets, you need to be vigilant about that, right? You need to be absolutely vigilant about that as a practitioner of the deceptive arts. And don't feel guilty about your paranoia, right? Don't feel guilty or paranoid about being paranoid, right? Embrace paranoia, right? Embrace it, because this is a critical step in mastering your own deceptive arts. And I repeat again, you don't want to let go of your paranoia just to find out later that you were right all along, not to trust this person. You were right all along to withhold your finances and to preserve your energy, right? Because now they are putting you in a situation where you need your energy either for escape or you need finances for escape and defense. But you were right not to trust this person. And what you need to make sure is that should your paranoia prove true, then they don't have no evidence against you for nothing, right? Because these romance wars are going to ultimately be fought in the courts. So you want to make sure they don't have nothing against you, but you want to make sure that you have everything against them ready to go, right? And you must seek strength in your own secrets and allow your secrets to strengthen your resolve. The deceptive art is strengthened by secrets. The secrets that you hold within yourself, knowing the toll that your secret will take on your life personally and the lives of others should make you want to hold on to them even more and protect them even more with more elaborate lies and more meaningful deception, right? Your secrets will keep you anchored in deception, and your paranoia is what is going to keep you alert at all times, making you fully aware of your deceptive capabilities. Because secrets are the true currency of the deceptive arts. You collect them, you keep them, you hide them, you protect them, right? And when the time is right, and only when you are giving the critical blow, only when you want to put out that final blow, that killing stroke, then you expose your secrets. Then you expose your ammunition and you expose it to very particular people, right? Sun Tzu says, attack, in other words, exposing secrets, involves turning the devious into the direct and misfortune into gain. What the Grandmaster calls the artifices of misdirection, right? So there's a time to cultivate these secrets, this evidence, this ammunition, and there's a time to turn what you've been doing deviously direct. And that is when you strike that final blow. You only expose yourself and your deceptive arts only when it is absolutely critical, and it is only critical when you are dealing the final, decisive, conclusive blow. When you say, arrest that man, these are his crimes. And there they are, the evidence of all of his misdeeds. And he is arrested, removed from society, never for you to see him again. Because you cannot strike in a way where revenge is an option. You cannot be in a situation where you've hurt someone and they're coming back to hurt you, right? Because this really gives people a reason, a motivation, and an opportunity to do something to you. And they can wait years to take you out. They can wait years to take you out and you won't see them coming. So, if you do decide to turn the devious into the direct, make sure that you face no consequences for this. Whatever secrets you expose and uncover, they must have legal consequences. Otherwise, they are quite frankly useless. They must have devastating consequences. Otherwise, they are useless, right? So, there's no point in exposing somebody's affair or intimate details if the adulterers are not married and divorce is not a consequence, right? Then all you're doing is just saying that that's his new girlfriend, that's her new boyfriend. That's all that's happened, right? But it's there's no consequence to an affair if it's just boyfriend and girlfriend. There's also no point in exposing financial transactions or financial records unless there's a bribe that you want to expose, a theft that you want to expose, or some type of fraud, right? So your deceptions, your secrets, your ammunition must have a purpose to them, and they must have a legal outcome. Otherwise, they are meaningless and powerless, right? There's no point in exposing alcoholism, substance abuse, buying and selling of illicit substances, that kind of thing, unless illegality accompanies it. So unless the person is consuming alcohol and then driving a vehicle, which is illegal. See that you can use, right? Or if somebody is purchasing illegal substances, right, and you just happen to have accompanied them and didn't make any purchases yourself, that you can use, right? Somebody's having an affair while they're being married, you can use that. You can use that, right? But otherwise all you've done is expose a scandal and start a rumor, and you're just gossiping. Now, while gossip has its place, quite frankly, gossip is a blunt little tool, right? It bloodies more than it actually cuts. It's a blunt tool and not a deadly weapon, right? Things that have legal ramifications, violence. For instance, if somebody consumes alcohol and then that alcohol induces them to be violent, you can use that. You can use that. But you can't use rumors and scandals, right? But you must also be aware that if people are not using violence or your finances to subdue you, they can use the law. They can use your proclivities. They can use your misgivings, right? Along with your secrets and your deception to undo you, right? So this is the paranoia that you must have. The things that you are paranoid about, that you don't want other people to know, you need to find out those things about them. You need to get evidence, you need to store that evidence, and then you need to utilize that evidence. So, in a situation where, quite frankly, you may be indulging your proclivities, what you don't want to do is be in a situation where you are indulging your proclivities, but nobody else is indulging in those same proclivities. Because now they have something on you while you have nothing on them, right? So you need to make sure that, it's called mutually assured destruction, right? This is the least of your interactive boundaries, right? So if I'm doing something wrong, it's because you're doing it too. Otherwise, there's no reason for us to be socializing in this particular way where I'm doing something and you're just watching me, right? When it should be the other way around. You should be doing the thing and I should be watching you, right? So just make sure and remember that people are out to find out things about you, right? They want to know who you are, where you've been, what you've done, what you're hiding, right? So that they can feel safe, secure, protected, and feel like they have an advantage over you. Because they won't feel protected unless they feel like they got something on you. And you have to make sure that there's nothing. But as they are searching for you, in their attempts to find out things, they may very well break the law. So they could break into somewhere where they shouldn't be, which is trespassing. They could be opening your device without permission, which is illegal, right? So in some places, I believe you can't just use people's passwords, right? Bank passwords, phone passwords, computer passwords, that kind of thing. I'm not sure if that's an actual crime, but I'm sure if you want to pay money to speak to a lawyer, they can find that out for you, right? So be strengthened by your paranoia. Be strengthened by your secrets and the resolve to keep the secrets. This is what will keep you steady in the deceptive arts. When you feel that inclination to start to move towards the morality, the honesty, the principles, the values, the truth, the philosophy of truth, when you start to see yourself moving towards that, knowing that you have secrets and a depth of paranoia will keep you firmly entrenched in the deceptive arts, right? And it'll keep your secrets hidden, right? While you uncover those of your enemies. And in that way, the circle of deception will be complete, right? And today's article is going to tell us about exactly what it means to be paranoid and how to cultivate that spirit of mistrust in for other people, right? And how you can better keep your secrets and what type of secrets that you can better keep, right? Um, and and as you increase in these types of skills, remember, as a practitioner of the deceptive arts, you can only get better and better. There's really no limit to the type of deception that you can utilize, right? And you can utilize, and there's also no limit to the amount of times you can catch people in their deceptions, right? Because people who have bad habits, they don't practice those habits sometimes. They practice them all the time. So the opportunity to catch them will always be there. But you need to have your own paranoia and don't ever let them catch you slipping. Don't even let them catch you asleep, let alone inebriated and acting a fool, right? You got to be paranoid, right? And let's have a look at what it means to be fully paranoid. What we are talking about is called paranoid personality disorder, and this is an article from myclevelandclinic.com. It was published on the 28th of April in 2024. It reads, paranoid personality disorder, this is what we have, is a mental health condition marked by a pattern of distrust and suspicion of others without adequate reason to be suspicious. So this is our standard sort of stance when it comes to other people, right? Complete distrust, right? A pattern, right, of distrust and suspicion without reason. You don't need a reason, right? You have no reason to trust these people. You have no reason to distrust them. So we choose distrust, right? People with PPD are always on guard, believing that others are constantly trying to demean, harm, or threaten them. There are two reasons to be on guard. On the one hand, you want to keep your own secrets, right, from getting out. And on the other hand, you want to try and get the other people's secrets, right? But effectively, people may not have a desire to hurt you instinctively, but upon discovering that you have a secret and what that secret is, there's no telling how that person would want to respond, right? So you do need to always be on guard, right? For for not just what other people could do, but also for what could happen should your secrets go out, especially now that you have embraced the deceptive arts. Don't let people find out that you're a practitioner of the deceptive arts. This is going to be your one of your most closely guarded secrets, right? Don't let people know that you have started to learn the ancient ways, right? That you've started to slowly uncover the mystery of their language, because many people will read this book, The Art of War, that we study every day, that we focus on and meditate on, and they won't understand these words. But we, the student of the ancient ways, with ancient wisdom, but new purpose, we will grasp the full wisdom of this 2,500-year-old manuscript. We will uncover every secret within it, and it all begins with embracing the deceptive arts as your true philosophy, not theology, not theology, because that is going to lead you into disaster, catastrophe, right? Abject failure. So, what is paranoid personality disorder, PPD? Paranoid personality disorder is a mental health condition marked by a long term pattern of distrust and suspicions of others. This is a lifetime. You are in this for life, because if you embrace the deceptive arts, just to go back to theology, and they discover that you've been practicing deception for years and years, they're going to find out that you're a hypocrite, and they won't trust you no matter how much you go back, right? No matter how much you are now a new believer, no matter how committed you are in following that theology. The fact that you were once a practitioner of the deceptive arts will be with you for life. And as soon as you hear something wrong in that theology, your paranoia is going to come right back. This is for life, right? So, a long term pattern of distrust and suspicion of others without adequate reason to be suspicious. Paranoia, it's called. People with PPD often believe that others are trying to demean, harm, or threaten them. Again, there's two sides of this, right? There's the side where you are terrified that people are trying to do something to you, right? And then there's also the side where you're scared what will happen if people find out your secrets, right? So two sides to every coin, even in the deceptive arts. People with paranoid personality disorder often think their behavior and way of thinking are problematic. Well, if you have something that you need to hide, that means you know that that thing is problematic. You know that if your employer finds out about something, you're going to get into trouble, you're going to get fired, you're going to lose your position. If the law enforcement discover your secret proclivities and whatever, you're going to get into trouble. You're going to get prosecuted, or at the very least, you're getting a fine. Or you're going to need to hire a lawyer, and that's going to cost you money. There are consequences to being exposed. There are consequences to losing your resolve in the deceptive arts. And those consequences are going to be real. So if you're going to practice the deceptive arts, you need to be all in, and you need to have clarity in your mind about what it is exactly that you're going to. Not to mention that, quite frankly, you don't have a choice. Because if you don't practice the deceptive arts against them, they will practice them against you. And then no man can save you. It says PPD is one of a group of conditions called Cluster A eccentric personality or eccentric personality disorders. Eccentric. They make that sound so ominous. People with these disorders have unusual and eccentric thinking or behavior. So you need to normalize your behavior. Part of your deception is going to be acting like you have no deception. Part of hiding your secrets is going to be acting like you have no secret to hide, right? Then there's no reason for people to look, because it's one thing for them to look and you hide that secret, because once they start looking, they're always going to keep looking. But it's another if they never look at all, right? So you have to make sure that their behavior is not extreme, unusual, eccentric, as they describe it here. It's important to note that people with paranoid personality disorder don't experience delusions or hallucinations with paranoia. So your mind is still clear. We're not talking about that, right? As commonly seen in schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder, and severe manic episodes in bipolar. So it tells you very clearly, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean you're crazy. It just means you are extremely cautious, right? So you have a reason to be cautious. One, you're trying to uncover the secrets of others, the illegalities of others. But two, you're trying to keep your own hidden, right? So you are paranoid that somebody's hiding something, and you want to find out what that is, especially if somebody has identified themselves as an enemy, but you also want to make sure that they don't have anything against you. Who does paranoid personality disorder affect? I'd say most of us, but me above all. Overall research reveals higher rates of paranoid personality disorder in females. You see, there you go. The counterpart is already paranoid. The counterpart is paranoid because they don't want you to find out who they are. They don't want you to find out how much they owe. They don't want you to find out how much they've drank, how much they've consumed illicit substances, and quite frankly, how much intimacy they've had. They are always paranoid. And those four factors there are always at play, right? They're always at play. It's either money, illicit substances, or intimate affairs, right? It's always a combination of those things, and what they're really trying to do is to hide the extent of it, right? Intimate affairs and illegal activities. There's always an illegal activity with the counterpart. You can be sure of that, right? And they're hiding it. They're hiding it, and they're paranoid all the time. But their paranoia fuels their resolve, right? It fuels them and makes them lie more, right? That's why when they get caught in a lie, all they do is they lie more, because they are fully entrenched in the deceptive arts, but they are not trained in them. Theirs is fully instinctive, whereas ours is trained and organized and prepared. We must stand prepared with our paranoia, while theirs is scattered and haphazard. It continues, but samples from hospital records reveal higher rates of PPD in males, right? So it says reveals higher rates in paranoia. Let me just read this again. Of paranoid personality disorder in females, but samples from hospital records reveal higher rates of PPD in males. Okay, so that's not very clear. Is it higher in females or higher in males? It says here, people with PPD are more likely to live in low-income households. Um, perhaps, but I know that very wealthy people are actually quite paranoid about losing their wealth, right? It keeps them up at night, right? It's like having a tremendous power that you can wield. You don't want to lose that. I also wouldn't want to lose that, right? Like the deceptive arts. I really wouldn't want to be without them I wouldn't want to need them and not have them. That's really what I don't want, right? When I'm in a need of a good deception to pull me out of something or to put me into something, I'd much rather have one ready, right? So, low income households, perhaps. They may be, it says here, of African heritage, Native American heritage, and Hispanics. I don't know why they've left out men of European and Asian descent from this list, but I would encourage all males to have a healthy skepticism and paranoia, especially about the counterpart. And as we can see here, the counterpart has a healthy skepticism about you. And then we also have at the bottom, they may be widowed, divorced, or separated, or never married. The never married, that's us. I'm absolutely paranoid, right? Especially about the institution of marriage. I don't trust nothing about it. Absolutely nothing about it, you know. Let's continue. More research is needed to learn more about why these risk factors are associated with PPD and how stress and trauma play a role in its development. Stress and trauma? Perhaps. How common is paranoid personality disorder? Paranoid personality disorder is relatively rare. Researchers estimate it affects 0.5% to 4.5% of the general US population. These statistics between 0.5% and let's say 4%, just around 2%, is really an indication. If we give an average, it's at just about 2%. Is really an indication of everything that we've been saying, or I've been saying on this platform, is that we're talking about very rare people. When we talk about vasectomy, it's men with no wives, no kids, no babies, and a vasectomy, right? You're talking about around 2%, less than 2%, right? Men with vasectomies, around 2%, right? Unmarried men, it gets lower and lower. Men without relationships, men without kids, that kind of thing. We're really talking about a low percentage of people. And even still, the practitioners of the deceptive arts, you can expect low numbers just like this also, right? So our numbers are bearing out in almost every statistic. We're really talking about a very small group of people, right? So yes, it does affect a very small group of people. What are the signs and symptoms of paranoid personality disorder? It says people with paranoid personality disorder are always on guard, believing that others are constantly trying to demean, harm, or threaten them. We've discussed that. These generally unfounded beliefs, as well as their habits of blame and distrust, interfere with their ability to form close or even workable relationships. You need to curtail this in terms of work, right? Because people are going to need for you to be open and approachable at work. So you cannot be in your solitude, in truth, when you are at work. You have to allow yourself outside of your solitude and expose yourself to the world. This is how people are going to build trust for you. This is how, quite frankly, you are going to indicate that you're an exemplary being, and then they will expose themselves. They will expose their habits, their proclivities, and above all, you want to know what illegal activities they're up to, right? So you have to be open and allow people to approach you, and you have to be approachable, and thereby you will learn the information that you need. The secrets will come to you, right? And when you do discover their secrets, you want to encourage them. You want to encourage them to practice their own deceptive arts, right? The more encouragement they get, the more trust they will have for you. and ultimately you'll have more evidence against them, right? The more evidence you have against someone, I suppose the more you can trust them. This is how friendships are forged in the deceptive arts. We simply just don't trust each other and collect information from each other while we benefit from the best parts of each other. It is, quite frankly, what it is. And we're really not talking about morality here, right? We're really not discussing that. We're discussing the deceptive arts. So if there's really no benefit for you in engaging with people, perhaps you shouldn't be engaging in them or with them, right? And in those activities, right? But at work, you really do want to be as open, candid, honest as possible, or seemingly honest as possible, so that people could be induced into doing the same thing, right? But ultimately, just so that people can work with you and you're a decent colleague, they're gonna need to be able to approach and discuss things with you. You cannot be closed off, right? You do need to expose part of yourself and leave the solitude, unfortunately. People with PPD may, number one, doubt the commitment, loyalty, or trustworthiness of others, believing they are exploiting or deceiving them. Absolutely, especially in these romance wars, right? You should doubt the commitment of others. You should doubt their loyalty. You should doubt their trustworthiness. And you can believe they're trying to exploit or deceive you, right? We're talking about in the social circumstances here, right? So this is really the good stuff, right? Two, people with PPD may be reluctant to confide in others or reveal personal information because they are afraid of the information being used against them. This is a very helpful list, actually, and I'm glad I included it in these slides because these are the things that you should be. So, one, you should be mistrustful of people. Two, you should not confide in other people or reveal personal information. In other words, not your secrets, right? Tell them your ID. Show them your driver's license if they want to see your driver's license. But don't expose your proclivities to people, right? Lest they use that information against you. Number three, be unforgiving and hold grudges. This is absolutely me. I am unforgiving and I absolutely hold grudges. I will wait years to get somebody back. And I'll wait just so I can get you back in the worst possible way at the worst possible time. Just when you think things can't get worse. And then the ancient one will send his regards. All right? So, yeah, you have to be unforgiving and hold grudges. Remember, if people use any things against you, it means that they're trying to hurt you. And the fact that they didn't succeed is not an indication that they didn't want to succeed. It just means that they were incompetent, right? And you need to find a way legally to punish that incompetence. If they're trying to use the deceptive arts against you and they fail, there must be consequences for that, right? There must be consequences for that. You need to get information against them. You need to make sure that information is legally sound. Then wait for them to be at their daughter's birthday party and then send the forces right in front of everyone. Destroy them. Destroy them, but do it legally and make sure that that information will hold, right? Make sure that information will hold when you strike that final blow. Be hypersensitive and take criticism poorly. This is something that needs to stop. If you are going to be in the deceptive arts and people deceive you, you really cannot take it personally and too hard. You need to really control your temper and your shame, right? Advance without seeking fame, retreat without feeling shame, right? You are now in the deceptive arts. Everyone is lying to you, right? And sometimes those lies, in fact, very often those lies will have consequences, right? And you need to understand that as long as those consequences are are not legal or financial, for the most part, you'll be fine, right? So you cannot be proud. You cannot, have a temper. You cannot be aggressive, especially since you've got your own deceptions going on, right? So you cannot be hypersensitive, and respond poorly to criticism, right? What you need to do is you need to absorb that, take it as a skill, and then perhaps use it against somebody else at another time. Next is, uh, so we read hidden meanings in the innocent remarks or casual looks of others. Casual looks, I have no problem with. Sarcastic remarks, people trying to amuse themselves. Yeah, people trying to amuse themselves at my expense is something that, quite frankly, I will admit does get to me, but it is something that I know how to contain within my solitude, right? So, because I practice the deceptive art so much, I know that by allowing people to insult me or to be insulted by their insults or responding in a particular way to their insults, I could be making myself look very bad. So I could be seeming like I don't really know how to take a joke, which I'm not cool with these jokes. I don't like these jokes. I keep telling you about these jokes. It's either that, or you either appear like you can't take a joke, or you appear overly aggressive unnecessarily. So you need to practice, you know as Sun Tzu says, advance without seeking fame. It's not about ego, and retreat without feeling shame. It's really not about your ego, right? It's about tactics and strategy in getting to the outcome that you want. Especially at work, you need to be able to allow people some humor in a professional environment, right? And you need to be able to take a little bit of criticism to the point, but again, a little criticism can grow into a lot of criticism, and it can cost you your position. So there's a fine line that you need to walk there. Innocent remarks, I'm not okay with that, but I can tolerate it from a strategic point of view, because that's how people can be sarcastic. People can be quite sarcastic, and their sarcasm can be very pointed, and it could really affect you. And if they tell a joke and that joke happens to be effective, they'll tell that joke again, right? And now you are the butt of another joke with another group of people, all right? And people will add to that humor again and again. So there is a chance of things getting out of hand in this sort of circumstances, but better for them to get to take it out of control than for you to be the one. You want to be composed in your deception, right? Because one terrible outcome will lead to people looking closer into you, and that will lead to a discovery of Lord knows how many other things, including your vasectomy and whatever proclivities you're trying to hide. Six, perceive attacks on their character that aren't apparent to others. So yeah, if somebody talks about your weight, how you've lost weight, or you've changed this or you changed that, they may just be commenting, or they may be sarcastic. Again, there's no point in overreacting to any of these things, particularly since what you're looking at are very specific things, or what you're looking for are very specific things. It's not their humor you should be worried about, it's the consequences of, you know, either accepting their humor and letting it go out of hand, or being viewed as somebody who cannot take a joke. There's consequences of that either way. Number seven, you have persistent suspicions without justified reasons that their spouse or romantic partners are being unfaithful. Isn't it better to be suspicious and find out that you're wrong? Or be suspicious and find out that you're right than for you not to know at all? The last thing you want to do is to be paying bills for somebody who's quite frankly being intimate with another person who's not paying anything, right? Isn't it better for them to be together since they're being intimate than for you to be the third wheel, but you're paying all the bills? You're paying for them to be disrespectful to you, right? So you're literally funding another person's relationship, and that's unacceptable, right? So if you're suspicious that your spouse is having an affair or they're being unfaithful, you need to go ahead and investigate that, right? And then if you do find out, you need to leave. Remember, you cannot be violent, you cannot be aggressive, you can be deceptive, and then protect yourself, right? But I'd say don't trust these counterparts. I really say that you cannot trust these counterparts at all. Our next one is be cold and distant in their relationship with others and might be controlling and jealous to avoid betrayal. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I'm absolutely distant. Like there are things that I'll tell people, and there's things that I won't tell people. And I don't care if you feel like you know I'm hiding something, right? I'm entitled to privacy, a lot of it, and I'm very serious about my privacy. I wouldn't even put my face on this platform, right? Not at all, right? Not until I'm certain that there's a certain level of safety, but I know there isn't. Not in the deceptive arts. You cannot expect safety as a practitioner of the deceptive arts. That's ridiculous, right? You just know you're being lied to. This is why we can be cold and distant and cautious and calculated, because we're paranoid, right? And we don't want to be betrayed. We don't want to be betrayed because the consequences of betrayal are devastating. They can be devastating, right? So it's all about self preservation, self before society. Number nine, not see their role in problems or conflicts, believing that they're always right. Well, it helps when you're right. It helps when you're sitting here reading the information, getting the details, right? So that you can act accordingly. This is why we need to be the thieves of information, right? And we need to get our information no matter where we can. That way, we can always stay on the right side of things. And we can always be sure that even if we're wrong by just a little bit. And we can make adjustments and proceed with confidence, right? But it helps to see where you go wrong in your deception, right? So if you're in the romance wars and you're being deceptive with your counterpart and you get caught, you need to be able to accept where your deception failed, and so that you can make improvements so that the next time you're deceptive, you're a little bit more convincing and you can improve your deceptive skills. So it does help to be, a little bit accountable, to say, oh, I should have used a better deception, or should have used a different deception. But don't let these counterparts put blame on you. Whatever the counterpart blames you for, even if it's true, deny it. Just deny it. There's no reason for these people to be have authority over you. Unacceptable, right? Just deny it. Lie to them some more. Number 10, have difficulty relaxing. This comes with guilt. When you are practicing the deceptive arts, you can't be guilty with your deception, man. You just need to accept this as a philosophy of life and separate morality as a different philosophy altogether. Guilt goes along with that philosophy, right? So you can't be feeling bad for embracing a different philosophy when the other philosophy has let you down, right? You need to be able to calm down and enjoy things that you actually really enjoy, even as a practitioner of the deceptive arts, right? So there's no point in being a practitioner of the deceptive arts just for you to feel guilty every time you use your gifts. every time you exercise your talents, you're going to be feeling bad about it. No, no. This is your right. You work hard on these deceptions. You practice them day after day. You read the art of war, right? So, when you're being successful at the deceptive arts, there's no reason for you to start feeling guilty and uncomfortable. No, relax, man. And number 11, they say we can be hostile, stubborn, and argumentative. I can see that. I can see some stubbornness. I can see a lot of hostility. Argumentative, this is something that we need to curb. I think being argumentative is only going to expose you and your disposition and your intentions, right? The more you talk, the more it exposes you and your dispositions, right? Um, I couldn't come up here on this podium and preach morality and principles and values for a long, long time. It would be fake. It would be false, right? I would be uncomfortable, right? But preaching the deceptive arts, I believe I can stand point because it's a true philosophy, right? An ancient philosophy, but a true philosophy that proves itself out, right? No reason to be hostile, stubborn, or argumentative, especially since we'll be practicing various techniques and various philosophies to understanding the deceptive arts. Uh, but I would say, in a social sense, with the counterpart and others, sure, you could be hostile if you want to, stubborn, even argumentative, but curtail these bad habits in your professional environment. People don't like to work with people they don't like, right? The next part says what causes paranoid personality disorder. Scientists don't know the exact cause of paranoid personality disorder, but it likely involves the combination of environmental and biological factors. Researchers have found that childhood emotional neglect, physical neglect, and supervision neglect may play a significant role in the development of PPD in adolescent and early childhood. In other words, they don't know. It could be anything. A bad experience, somebody lied to you, could be watching a TV show and discover a lie that you heard before being said on TV and you realize, oh, I was deceived. Right? Now you're paranoid. It could be anything. It doesn't matter what induces the paranoia. The fact is that you now have it and you need to use it, right? It says researchers used to think that there are likely a genetic link among schizophrenia, schizotypal personality disorders, and PPD, but most studies have revealed that this connection isn't as strong as they once thought. For a moment, I thought there was another slide, but upon perusing it, I realized it wasn't really going to be very helpful to us. What it just really talks about is diagnosis and cure, which, quite frankly, says there's really no easy way of diagnosing it and there's no cure. All right, so this will be the final slide for our video today. But this is a good place to really end the video, especially looking at these 10 characteristics of what a paranoid person is and what you should be as a paranoid person, right? These are also the kinds of things that you want to look for in somebody else to realize if they themselves are practicing the deceptive arts. As to whether they would be a trained practitioner or simply functioning on instinct and experience is to be determined, right? But you do need to be extensively paranoid as a practitioner of the deceptive arts, especially when protecting your own secrets from other people, in particular the vasectomy. The secret of having this vasectomy will really change the way you see interactions, especially with the counterpart and the benders in the social aspect, right? Keeping your vasectomy a secret will really put you in that position where you're paranoid about it, where you're thinking about it the whole time, but you don't want to talk about it, right? You're thinking about it the whole time, but you don't want to talk about it. And that constantly thinking about it and not talking about it, the longer you don't say anything, the more powerful your deceptive abilities are, right? And in keeping that secret, that huge secret, you'll therefore be able to keep other bigger secrets. There's no extent to which your secrets can go, and you can keep bigger and bigger secrets, right? And have more and more ammunition against your enemies, and your competitors, right? And with timing and patience, you can always strike a devastating blow at the worst possible time, right when they are on their knees, right, begging for mercy. Then you finish them with that final stroke, that last piece of legal evidence that you've collected. So, maintain paranoia. Don't shy away from it, right? Don't be ashamed to feel these things. You are a practitioner of the deceptive arts now, right? Mistrust, doubt of commitment, loyalty. These are your ways now. And you need to embrace them. And you need to see these in other people without being aggressive, without being, you know, inducing suspicion from other people. Be subtle. Be subtle. And then you can hold the enemy's fate in your hands. These are the words of the Grand Master. Be subtle in your deceptions. Be subtle with your secrets, right? Make sure that they are well hidden. That way, even if people look around, there's nothing for them to see. Remember, secrets are the currency of the deceptive lives, right? The one who knows the most and can keep the most secret really is the richest among us. That is the most powerful practitioner, right? The one who has all of your secrets, but you have none of his. That's who you want to be. You want to be the bearer of all secrets, the master of the deceptive arts. You want to see the deception in all things, the hypocrisy, the contradiction, and therefore the lies. This is the deceptive arts. To identify first the hypocrisy, then the contradiction. And that's where you find the lies. That's where you find the deception. And you'll only be able to identify that by having a healthy skepticism and a healthy paranoia for all who you deal with. And then hit them with your own lies, your own deception, your own misdirection. Huh? It's called the divine manipulation of the thread. And you will weave that thread until you've created your own web of lies to entrap your enemies and thereby destroying them. I am the Ancient One, the Bachelor Supreme, and the Phantom Menace, and I am the Master of the Deceptive Arts. Thank you for remaining with me and watching this video. Thank you for your attention. I appreciate it, and I always will. Have a nice day.